Hi, I'm Michael and welcome to The Pet's Journey. I'm your host. Today we're going to be visiting with Lisa Shaffer in regards to healthy breeds, genetic testing for your dog. What does that mean? Well, stay tuned. We're going to find out. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Room Healthy Pods. We're talking about healthy breeds, genetic testing. What can you do with your dog and understanding your dog's health by doing genetic testing? And I have Dr. Lisa here today, and we're going to be discussing it. She's with Paw Print Genetics. Invite Lisa to say hello to the room and introduce herself and kind of give a little background of what she does and what brought her to it. Lisa.
Thank you, Michael. I'm the founder and the CEO of Paw Print Genetics, and we do testing, inherited disease testing, and inherited trait testing for dogs. And what that means is things that dogs, get from their parents. So we don't do infectious diseases, we don't do kennel cough and things like that, but we look at potentially diseases that could have been inherited from one of the parents. And then a lot of people want to learn more about their dogs, like why is their dog brown or why does their dog have long hair? And so we also look at traits because these traits are also inherited. So anything to do with the DNA of the dog, that's what we do. And we're located in Spokane, Washington, but we get samples from all over the United States, from Canada, and from all over the world. We have lots of breeders in Europe and South America and just all over. So it's really a lot of fun to be able to be involved in helping people breed healthy dogs.
I know you started with another company and you're working with Down syndrome children, and you were working on, you came up with a test on how to track that. And you went from, I think, the microscope to a different technique and doing that with many labs across the United States right now, right?
Yeah. So my first company was Signature Genomic Laboratories, and that company developed a way to scan the genomes of children with developmental disabilities. And so one of the things that we would have detected with that technology would have been something like Down syndrome, where you have an extra chromosome 21. And we were instrumental in not only starting that technology, being the first lab actually in the world to offer it, but then we started teaching other laboratories how to do the technique. And so now if there's a child with a developmental problem, learning disabilities, seizure disorder, just lots of kinds of things that can go wrong in childhood, this would be the test that they would get. It's called a microarray. And it's the detection rate of finding these problems in the DNA increased from about 2 or 3% through looking through the microscope to nearly 25%. So it really changed the way that we're able to diagnose children. And I kind of got to the end of that journey, and now every lab in the world that used to look through microscopes now uses this technique. And so when that company was acquired, I decided to start Paw Print Genetics and change the world of the way we look at dog genetics.
And I asked that, I love that you went there, because I love to hear your journey. And that's what we talk about, is the journey here as well, is that you started, like most people inside the animal world, you started in the human side of life, and then you've slowly migrated over to the pet side of life, and now you're making an impact there. And I love what you're doing, and I love your passion. And how do you feel when somebody's looking at your company and they don't know where to start? Where does someone start to investigate your company and how to best use your company? If they have, let's say they buy a lab and they want to know about some markers that maybe for hip dysplasia or something like that, that's hereditary in the dog's family, where do they start?
So our company, we actually, I have under the Paw Print Genetics umbrella, we actually have 4 different brands. So we have Paw Print Genetics, which is breed-specific testing. So you would go to the website, pawprintgenetics.com, and you would just search for your breed, and you would find the diseases and traits that are offered in your breed. And then we also have another product called the Canine Health Check. And the Canine Health Check is 250 different diseases and traits found in all dogs. And so some are breed specific and some are relevant to all breeds. But regardless of the breed, you would get all 250 tests. So that's a nice package because you don't have to look at your breed specific testing, like for a Labrador, and think, okay, do I want to do the hereditary nasal parakeratosis? And I hardly can say it, so I don't even know what it is. And or do I want to just order the canine health check and let the doctors look at the, 250 different traits and diseases in my dog and then provide me a comprehensive report? So that's why we offer two different, because some breeders know exactly what they want, and they know which diseases and that, are in their lines. And then other breeders and dog owners, especially, they don't want to worry about all these individual tests. They just say, you know what, just do it all and let me know if there's something to worry about. And that's what we do in our report. So, and then if you're, I know that we're talking about dogs today, but we also offer a brand called the Cat Scan. And the Cat Scan will look at the genome of your cat for 86 different diseases and traits. And that's found at mycatscan.com. And then we also have a brand, Avian DX, where we look at birds, so mostly exotic birds and other species. So we're doing lots of different companion animals, but Paw Print Genetics is breed specific. And then the Canine Health Check, we just do everything in your dog and provide you a comprehensive report.
So when someone, like, let's say I have a dog and I come to you and I do the 250 and I get my report back and my vet looks at it and they point out a few things, does that help me prepare my dog for their life to win, to set them up with the best health?
Yeah. So, we're born with all the genetics that we're ever going to get. We get half of our genetics, half of our genes from our mom and half of our genes from our dad. And the same with dogs. And then once we test your dog, you will have a report that will indicate if there's anything that you need to be looking at in the future. Some diseases occur very early in life and some diseases occur later in life. And with the Canine Health Check, you get everything. The same with Paw Print Genetics, if you selected everything for your breed. But if you have an older dog and you're concerned about their health in the future, then you can also call and talk to one of our geneticists or one of our veterinarians, and we can help you select just those tests that happen later in life. Because the diseases that occur, within the first year of life, if your dog is now 3 years old, well, then, we wouldn't want you to order those tests because your dog isn't at risk for those. But we would talk to you about the tests that would indicate things that could go wrong later in life. So we're very conscientious about your money, and we want to make sure that you're ordering what you need and what you want. So some people just want the comprehensive kit, and other people just want to know, what do I need to look for in the future? And this is the age of my dog, and then we can help you select the appropriate test.
Yeah, because I know that some dogs, like when they hit 3.5 years old, if they have a condition from maybe their mom or their dad, that's when it can potentially, like, let's say arthritis or something like that, start kicking in. So would that be something that I would see early on in a test, or would that be something that I would wait till they're little in their teens?
So when you think about genetics, most of the things that we test for are this one gene causes this one disease. And so it might be like this one gene causes this one specific type of blindness. When you think about things like hip dysplasia, arthritis, those are actually complex diseases that are controlled by many genes and environment, and we don't test for those. So what we test for is this one gene causes this one disease. And then you can kind of think about, okay, well, what about the early onset versus the later onset? Early onset diseases are usually diseases caused by or controlled by something in the body that we all need. So I'm sure everyone's heard of enzymes, right? And enzymes are things that catalyze reactions in the body. And we need certain enzymes in our cells. Well, there's early onset diseases where the puppies are actually born and they can't even make that enzyme. And so within the first few weeks of life or the first few months of life, after they've used up the enzymes that they got from mom, through, the placenta when the puppy was growing and developing, once those kind of get used up, the puppy can't make their own anymore. And so then that's why you see these early onset diseases. So early onset diseases tend to be what we call metabolic, and metabolic or metabolism just means that it involves some sort of enzymatic process, and the puppy can't make whatever it needs to make to do that cellular function. Whereas older onset, older age diseases are things like degenerative myelopathy, where you have the protein in the cell being made, but it just doesn't work as well. And over time, then that causes a problem for the dog. So, for example, degenerative myelopathy is a disease that if any of you have German Shepherds, I'm sure you've heard of this disease. It's very prevalent in German Shepherds, where they lose the use of their back legs around the age of around 8 or 9. And then eventually within a year will lose the use of all of their legs. And unfortunately, then they have to be euthanized. So that's something that just, gradually occurs as the dog ages. So that's sort of the difference. And so if you had a dog that was already 3 years old, we wouldn't want, if you came and asked us the question, we would say, no, you don't need these metabolic tests because your puppy would have already shown signs or your dog would have already been sick. And so we would only talk to you about the older age diseases.
With so many,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. With so many people these days, especially being here on Clubhouse, I've seen this, and it's so beautiful to see that everybody wants the best for their pet. Everybody wants to feed them right, exercise them right. It's the life of a pet has completely changed in the last 10 years than it used to be in 20 years ago, let's say. They're just not backyard animals any longer. There are companions, like you said. So when somebody comes to you, let's say I'm coming to you again and I'm getting that 250, let's do that early onset test with the 250. Once I get this and I give it to my vet, does that really help me with them be able to determine what medications and what tasks or what direction we can go on in attacking the disease?
Yeah. So some diseases are not treatable. So, I think it's important to be, kind of categorize things. So some diseases are not treatable, but now that your dog has this, and you can look for the signs and the symptoms as they age. And then if your dog starts showing the symptoms, you can then talk to your veterinarian about, how to make your dog as comfortable as possible, what can be expected, for the remainder of their life. And, to expect these things. So, for example, my dachshund Frankie, she has 2 copies of a mutation that causes blindness. And this is a recessive disease, so it requires 2 copies. So I know that if she lives long enough, over her lifetime, she will eventually go blind. And I can now be watching to see if she's, starting to behave in a way where, it's apparent that her eyesight is going. Now, I'm very proactive with her. We take her to the ophthalmologist every 6 months, and they check her eyes every 6 months. And so far, there's no signs of blindness. But that's just one example of how you can be proactive. Now, there's a whole other class of diseases that are treatable. So this is really exciting because if you have a dog, for example, that's missing an enzyme for metabolizing the B vitamins, it's called cobalamin malabsorption, you can actually give the dog B vitamins and they can live a full and healthy life. And so you can be very proactive. So this is the beauty of doing genetic testing as early as possible in the dog's life so that you can anticipate medical problems. And if they're treatable, you can treat them. And if they're not treatable, you can be aware of them and you can help your dog through those problems.
So was this because you had your own dogs that brought you into the pet section? Because I love what you're doing here. And I know that so many people, when I've talked about you a lot since our last room. I'm like, oh my God, I met Lisa and she does these genetic tests. And I'm like, how incredible they are. And, talking to my vets that I host in the rooms and I talk to them about it, and they're like, they love it. And the value of it is so big for their practice that they use it often themselves. And so when you first got into it, when you were looking for this, like you were leaving your other company, it got sold, and you decided you're going to come into you decided to start this company. Was it because you had pets and that was your drive, or how did you like determine pets was the next thing? Because what you're doing, what you're talking about right now is like so fascinating and so wonderful for a pet owner.
Well, when I had sold my previous business, I knew I wanted to stay in genetics, and I knew I wanted to, continue to be busy. And I had always been really fortunate in I had the privilege of doing a few cases for the San Diego Zoo for some of their primates, looking for, again, changes in the DNA in the primates, because primates and humans are very similar, and so I was able to do that with the human technologies that we had. And so when I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life, and what am I going to do to keep myself busy, and I wanted to still be in genetics, and I still want to make a difference. And I knew that although working with zoos was very interesting, if I was going to have a staff of people, I had to be able to pay them. And zoos typically, they don't pay. They need stuff done for free, which was fine at the time, but it's hard to make a company around that because I have to pay my staff. So then I started looking at companion animals, and I took swabs from my other dogs, and Trixie the wiener dog, and I sent them to all the current labs. So we're not the only lab out there that does this. And what I did was this market research. I kind of looked to see where the gaps were. And what I found was that even though there was, a half a dozen other labs out there that were doing genetic testing, they didn't do all the dachshund tests that I needed. So each one did a handful of tests. And then a lot of them didn't provide, a report that was signed by a geneticist or a veterinarian. They didn't provide genetic counseling. They didn't even provide the kits to do the cheek swabs on the dogs. And so I identified all the gaps and decided that there were enough gaps in this industry that I really felt like I could make a difference. One of the biggest differences is that we have the largest menu actually in the world. So we offer almost 300 different tests for more than 350 different breeds of dogs. And so pretty much anything that you're looking for, if the gene or gene mutation is known, then we probably offer it. And that was the other thing that was really important, is sort of this one-stop shopping, because when I started talking to breeders, they were literally having to send multiple samples to different labs because no one offered everything. And I think it's just really important to keep all your genetic testing together. Your reports have everything you need on your dog. You can talk to one, lab, or, when you call us, you talk to a geneticist or a veterinarian, and you can talk to them about all of your tests because you had them done all in one place. So anyway, I did my research and I found that there were really some gaps to fill. And I really felt that, especially since we had been in human genetic testing and had such, it's a highly regulated industry and very, highly accurate, as you can imagine, because you're doing testing on babies. We wanted to bring that same sort of, the principles of regulation, because there's actually no regulatory oversight in genetic veterinary testing, which is very unfortunate. So we brought all these really stringent conditions, and we have high accuracy, and we provide genetic counseling, and we just do things differently. We do things as if your dogs are your babies, which we know they are.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, is they are babies. And we, like I said earlier, it's like what you're doing, I just find so wonderful for the families that have these puppies that they want to set them up to win, and everybody wants the best for their dogs these days. And, I talk to like holistic vets, and everybody wants the best. And I just think what you're doing is so brilliant. And everything that you're doing. What about if a dog has a condition like IBD? What do you think about that? Is there a test for that?
They're not known for IBD in German Shepherd or any other breed. and if you contact us, we can also look to see if we can find a research team that's looking at it. We also try to put, people who have dogs with medical problems in touch with genetic researchers so that it's really hard to get the samples. It's really hard to identify these dogs because they're all in private homes, right? Going to private vets. And so we also try to connect dog owners with researchers so that people can find the mutations for things like, IBD and other diseases. But no, to my knowledge, the genetics are not understood for IBD.
Do you get a lot of people that come to you with diseases, or is there a lab that you work with to help maybe find these, or how does that work? How does that process work so that they can bring a test to you that you can offer?
What we do is we'll try to find if there is a research program already that exists where they're trying to find the genetic mutations for a particular disease, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We would prefer to put the dog owner in touch with a researcher who has the interest and is already working on a particular disease. We have found that there are some diseases that nobody's working on, and then depending on the extent of the problem, we may actually take on that research project. But we have to be very careful because, like with Claire's example, she's had 2 German Shepherds with IBD. So it sounds like it, is definitely something that's in that breed. But we need to be careful because some dogs simply get sick and it's not something that's widespread in the breed. And we want to go after first those things that are widespread in the breed because we have to have the samples. So having just one dog with a disease is not enough to do genetic research on and be successful in finding the mutation. We typically need, several dogs. Would be great to get, 15 or 20 dogs that all have the same disease and they're all from different lines, because that's likely, genetic and likely in the breed and likely a benefit to other dogs in the breed. Because we want to be developing markers that will be, a benefit to, other dogs as well.
Which makes complete sense. Now, is there a place people can see if there are studies going on?
So what we would do, and you can try this yourself, or like I said, you could contact us at Paw Print Genetics, and we would be happy to look into it for you. But what we start with is a website called PubMed, so PUBMED, and you can simply search the words, you put in inflammatory bowel disease and, you have to use the word and, German Shepherd dog, and search and see if you can find any medical literature on it. And that will be your first indication that somebody is doing research on it. And usually on these medical papers that are published, it will have the contact information for the researchers. So that would be the first thing that we do, and you can certainly do that yourself. Again, it's PubMed. So PUB as in boy, MED as in dog.
Yeah, PubMed, what a great resource just for so many articles. And just the fact that you can find these researches on there is just amazing. So what do you think about cancer? I hear so many dogs getting cancer these days. Is there a test for that?
Yeah, cancer is a difficult one because there's 2 different ways to think about cancer. So first of all, cancer is a big word, right? There's lots of, cancer is one big word, but underneath it are all these different kinds of cancers, even in humans, right? There's colon cancer and breast cancer and spleen cancer and pancreatic cancer, and they're all, caused by different genetic mechanisms. So the 2 ways to think about cancer, one is the kind of cancer we get because of old age and throughout our lives, no matter, how much spinach you eat and how much you stay out of the sun, we are still accumulating mutations as we age. And some of those mutations can cause cells to grow. It usually increases their growth and it causes tumors to grow, and then tumors cause problems elsewhere. So that's the first type of cancer. You accumulate mutations throughout your life, and then one of those mutations is in a gene that controls cellular growth, and now the cellular growth goes out of whack. The second kind of cancer are cancers that we are born with mutations that predispose us to certain cancers. And so it's pretty rare in humans, but it does happen that people are born with mutations, such as you've probably heard of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations that people can be born with that predisposes them to breast cancer. So that's the type of mutation that we're born with, and dogs can also be born with these kinds of mutations. And there's a lot of research right now trying to identify them. We only offer 2 mutations for inherited cancers, one in the German Shepherd dog and one in the miniature Schnauzer. There's still so much research that needs to be done because dogs like golden retrievers tend to have the hemangioma type of sarcoma, and those likely have a very strong genetic component. They likely have inherited a mutation in some gene that's predisposing them to these cancers because they get them very young. But we talk to lots of customers and we hear about some of these cancers. They're very common in dogs. The hemangiomas and sarcomas in the Bernese Mountain Dogs, and again the Goldens, older age type of cancers where we're all just accumulating these mutations, and you get a mutation in the wrong gene, and then problems can happen. I estimate that dogs are probably about 15 years behind what we see in human genetic testing. Of course, in humans, you can be screened for the breast cancer genes. You can be screened for, there's other genes that provide inherited risk for cancers. We're just not there yet with dogs, but there are a lot of researchers that are looking at this because it is a really common problem. And dogs don't have the same kind of lifespan that humans have, so everything's accelerated in them. So, it is an intense area of research right now are cancers in dogs.
I can imagine that seems to be like one of the biggest questions people have that I hear inside of Clubhouse with their pets is when they do get cancer, is there a way to test before? So I can only imagine how much effort's being put into that. One of the other things I love about Paw Print Genetics is, Lisa, you have a lot of breeders, for all the different breeds out there that will come have their dogs tested so they can see the markers that their dogs are carrying. Do you want to talk about that, Lisa, a little?
Sure. So it sounded like you were looking to, perhaps try to find a Jack Russell in a shelter or maybe a rescue situation, because I heard you say adopt, but we do offer a website called Paw Print Pedigrees. And on Paw Print Pedigrees, this is where our customers have voluntarily displayed their genetic testing on their dogs. So if you're looking to get a Jack Russell or any breed from a breeder, then you can go to Paw Print Pedigrees. And if you just Google Paw Print Pedigrees, you'll find the website. And then you can search your breed, and you will find customers of Paw Print Genetics who test their dogs and have chosen, to display their dog's results on this website. And it's a great way to find your next dog because these are breeders who not only use us, not only use genetic testing, which is, fantastic, but they're also willing to kind of put it out there and to show you that they do the testing.
Fascinated by what Lisa's doing and everything that she offers. I love the pedigree part of her website. I think that's brilliant. I think that's going to be huge in the future, because I could just, it's just huge just to be able to know that you're going to a proper breeder, that they're really that responsible in breeding and taking it to this level and working with Lisa and just having those, reports and actually letting the public to see them. I think that's so unusual. How long have they been doing this, Lisa?
So we started offering Paw Print Pedigrees pretty early on. I think that it's been since 2014, and there's thousands of breeders on there now and thousands of dogs. And, we do have people who reach out and say, that they found a dog on Paw Print Pedigrees and wondering how much is he? And it's like, no. We don't sell dogs, and we don't. And actually, it's up to you to identify the breeder, and the breeder has their phone number and website on there, and then you only use it for information to find the breeder, and then you work with the breeder on that. So it is definitely not a place to sell dogs. It's just to show that, it's free for our customers. It's a way for them to show the world that they do genetic testing and that they're concerned about, breeding healthy dogs.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have the breeder list, you have the breeds, you have the location, and then you have shared dog. The shared dogs are each individual dog that's been tested, correct?
Correct. And so when you click, so you can find information a couple of different ways. If you know a breeder or you know a breed, you can put that in. Or if you're looking for a particular dog, you can actually search by breed on the dog page. And then next to the dog, you'll see if there's a trophy or not, which kind of gives you an indication of how much was done. So a trophy means that they've done the panels that we offer for that particular breed. And then if there's no trophy next to the dog, then the breeder chose individual tests to do on that dog. And that's probably because, the breeder knows, the particular diseases that are in their lines that they want to check for and make sure that the dogs don't have those. But that's the main difference. You'll see a trophy means that they did everything that's available. And then if there's no trophy, then they pick individuals.
So brilliant that you're doing this. And I love this breeder feature that you have inside of your website. I think it's like people are being so responsible with their breeds and being able to bring their documents to the web like this and be able to show it to everybody. I just think it's just, having integrity. I love that. And I love what you're doing, Dr. Lisa.
Well, thank you. I mean, yeah, it's really nice, and in some respects, it's really brave because, there's a lot of people who are very anti-breeder, which I understand. We don't get into that debate because we're all about healthy dogs, period. And we know that breeders are not going to go away, and we want to help them breed the healthiest dogs possible. So it's I think it's just very brave that they put out there all of their information and the fact that they've tested their dogs. So I think it's great.
Well, and let's say we don't want to go to a breeder and we do want to rescue a pup. So we go to the pound or we go to a shelter and we rescue a pup. How easy is it to do these tests? And can we do it with a dog that we rescue?
Yeah, so that would be the perfect situation. I would just do a canine health check because then you're just getting everything. And it's super easy. You just go to caninehealthcheck.com and order your kit, and we send the kit to you if you're in the United States and Canada. So we send kits to the United States and Canada, and if you're outside the U.S. and Canada, then we can help you find the appropriate type of cheek swab to do on your dog. And it's so easy. I mean, it just really, really is easy. And for those in the U.S., we make it the easiest because we even include a prepaid return mailer. So, there's really no excuse for not doing genetic testing on your dog because it just becomes so easy. All the results, you'll create an account and we post your results to your online account. So nothing to get lost in the mail. You don't have to be looking for paperwork. It's just all there in your account and it's there forever and ever. So if you need to refer back to it, you can. If you need to print it and give it to your veterinarian, you can do that. And so we want to take the work out of getting your dog tested because it seemed like before we came along there were a lot of hurdles to jump through, and it seemed like there was a lot of barriers to getting your dog tested. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible.
So this test, you would then go ahead and you would take this test and bring it to your vet, and then they'd be able to read it, right, Dr. Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would bring the report to your vet, and actually anybody can read it. I mean, it's great if you're a veterinarian, but green means your dog is clear, and red means you better, take a look at this and see what's going on. You can also call us. So we have veterinarians on staff. So even before you go see your veterinarian, you can call and talk to one of our veterinarians and we can go over the results with you. And then our contact information is on the report. So your veterinarian can call and talk to one of our veterinarians. And so because we have a lot of diseases and it's really impossible, we don't expect a veterinarian to know about all 250 different diseases that are on the, canine health check. So we're here to support your veterinarian. We're here to support you as the dog owner.
Yes, we're always talking about that. Build your team, and you're another part of the team, and I love this. Once we get our initial shots and we get that 250 tests done, is that good for their life, or should we be coming back every 5 years, or are we set?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So we are, you know, we and our dogs are born with all of their genetics, right? Except for this separate category of cancer, which you accumulate during your lifetime. So, they're born with all of their DNA, but we don't know, there's 20,000 genes probably in their genome, and we don't know all of the mutations that cause all the different diseases today. So, if you did a canine health check today of 250 tests, then yes, you could revisit it in 3 to 5 years, or even we're constantly adding to it. So, even a year from now, or, 3 years from now, to check back and ask the question, I did this and we can look in your account and see that you did a canine health check in 2019, or you did a canine health check in 2021. And we can tell you, this is what was missing. This is what is different now. This is what we added. And we would also tell you whether or not it's relevant for your breed. So again, we're not just about selling stuff. That just is not me. We're in this because we want dogs to be healthy, and we want dogs to live long lives. And so we have people contacting us every day who say, I did a canine health check in 2017. What's new? What do I need to? And we'll look at their breed and we'll say, oh yeah, a Labrador. Yes, we now offer these other 3 diseases. And sometimes we, suggest that they just get it done through Paw Print Genetics, because they can just order just those 3 diseases, and they don't have to redo the whole canine health check.
And I bet you get that a lot, Dr. Lisa, is that you get a lot of people asking for all the different little diseases that are out there. How, like you said, we're about 15 years. You think 15 years behind the human?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an estimate, but
Right.
we know of thousands of different mutations in humans. And of course, more research goes into human genetics than canine genetics. But yeah, I think in 10 to 15 years, we'll have lots of tests for inherited cancers, and we'll have much better treatments for cancers, because every cancer has what we call a molecular signature that shows all of the different mutations throughout the genome that are contributing to that cancer. And many times in human cancers, they are now targeting treatments based on these molecular signatures. So, again, unfortunately, canine research is several years behind human research, but we're going to get there. And we'll have better treatments for cancers, and we'll be able to identify these earlier to help our dogs.
Wow, it's amazing. I keep saying this. I just adore what you do here. It's easy to do the swab test. It's easy for them. And when you talked about a blood swab, what was that?
So for clients outside of North America, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to ship samples to us. And so one of the ways, people can either ship their cheek swabs, and we have a U.S. customs form that we suggest that they use to help get the samples through U.S. customs, because these are non-infectious canine samples, and they really shouldn't get held up in customs, but sometimes they do. So there's the cheek swabs, and then the other way to ship samples, because it's very expensive to ship blood on ice, which is how it needs to be shipped. What we suggest is to have your veterinarian draw a little bit of blood, and really very little blood, and then put 2 to 3 spots of blood on a coffee filter, about the size of a small coin, and let it dry. And then just write your dog's name on that coffee filter, your order number on that coffee filter, put the coffee filter into a plastic bag like a Ziploc bag, put it in an envelope, and ship it to us that way. And those seem to do really well getting through U.S. Customs. And those blood spots give us a lot of DNA, a lot of high quality DNA, and we can do a lot of testing with those. So that's a really good way to get things to the U.S., to get samples on dogs to the U.S. are using these dried blood spots. And it's not just simply on a coffee filter. And so it's funny because I was going back and forth with a customer in the UK, and she was trying to explain to me she doesn't drink coffee; she drinks tea, and she's having to find these coffee filters. And we can, we really can use either the bleached coffee filters or the unbleached coffee filters. That's not a big deal. It's basically just a piece of paper, where the blood can dry pretty quickly.
That's amazing. I was wondering what was the problem with international. So now I understand it's customs because it just gets locked up in customs.
They get locked up in customs because customs just doesn't know what's in there, and they don't know what to do with it, and they think it's rabies. You think of dogs, everyone thinks it's rabies, and it's not. And since COVID, it's gotten even worse. So we didn't really have very many problems prior to 2020, but since COVID, the U.S. Customs Office has become just really, I don't know the right word, but anyway, kind of fanatic about samples coming into the U.S. But if you declare that it's non-infectious canine samples for genetic testing, then you don't have a problem. But when they don't know what it is, I guess they just assume it's something terrible. So it's just important to just make it clear what's in the package.
I know there's one other thing I want to discuss before we jump off, but I wanted to ask you, is there anything that we haven't covered that's kind of in the subject that we've been talking about today that you want to cover, that you want to share with anybody in the room?
Well, the one thing that we get asked a lot is, I have a dog that is showing signs of, let's say, exercise-induced collapse. And my dog is a Cocker Spaniel, and I know that the mutation was identified in Labradors. Can you test my Cocker Spaniel, for example, for exercise-induced collapse? And a lot of people have the misconception that the tests that we develop have to be breed specific because a Cocker Spaniel has different DNA than a Labrador. And in fact, the DNA sequences that we use to test for exercise-induced collapse are found in Labradors and found in Cocker Spaniels. So the test, we can do the test, but the question really is, does the mutation found in Labradors, is it the same mutation in Cocker Spaniels? And so that's a different question. So one question is, will the test work? And the answer is always yes, because the DNA sequences are the same between dogs. But is this test relevant for my breed? And that's the question that we want you to ask, because again, we want to make sure that you are getting the right test for your dog. Because we offer, for example, 15 different progressive retinal atrophies, so PRA, and these are mutations that cause blindness. We want to make sure that you're ordering the right one, because if you order the Papillon PRA1 in your Labrador, the test will work, but we will never find that mutation in a Labrador. It just doesn't occur in the Labrador. So then one, last comment about that. Well, why does Papillon PRA only occur in the Papillon and not in the Labrador? So we have some tests, some diseases like degenerative myelopathy that occurred before a lot of breeds were created. So remember, these dogs were created from wolves, and they were bred over time for certain characteristics, such as short legs in dachshunds and, being able to retrieve in Labrador retrievers. And so as the breeds were being developed, some of them carried along some of these ancient mutations that we find in lots of different breeds. But then as the breeds were being developed, some mutations spontaneously occurred only in one breed. So the Papillon PRA is an example. It's not found in anything else except for the Papillon and the Faline, which came from the same ancestors. So these are the kinds of questions that we love, because we want people to understand what they're ordering, and we want people to understand why we do certain tests in some breeds and we do other tests in other breeds.
So so people come to you and are like, well, you test over here. Why can't you test my dog?
Exactly. So we have people who will come to us and they'll say, my dog has that, hereditary nasal parakeratosis or HNPK, but their dog is a greyhound. Well, the mutation that we use is only found in Labradors for HNPK. So they'll ask us, well, can you do that mutation in my dog? Well, we can do the test, but we're unlikely to find that mutation in your dog because it looks like this particular mutation arose after the Labrador breed was created. And so, again, really important questions to ask because we want you to be spending your money wisely. We want you to get results back that are meaningful.
So it sounds like the best thing for someone to do is, like, even before they do the test, is speak to one of your vets that you have on staff and say, this is what I think is going on. I want to do the 250 test, or what test should I do? And they'll be able to help them direct them in the right direction.
Right. And actually the best thing to do is to email us. So we have a staff of people who answer our emails. And if we feel that the next step is for you to talk to one of our geneticists or veterinarians, we will recommend that you do that. And we will actually have, one of them give you a call. But a lot of these types of questions can be answered through email, and then you have the written document. So we really like email because you have the written information in front of you now, and you're not relying on sort of what you heard or what you interpreted while, we were talking about it. So I would start with sending us an email, and then once you get our response through email, then you can decide whether you not want a consultation with one of our geneticists or veterinarians.
Beautiful. Well, once again, Lisa, thank you so much for being here today. We're at the top of the hour. I want to respect your time, and everybody's in the room as well. Thank you for joining me once again and just having this conversation. It's so fascinating, and I just love what you're doing. I did have one last question. I think I wanted to sneak it in really quick. Do people ask you, and my question was, are these the same tests they use on humans, or these are all new tests that you've actually designed or worked with other labs that have designed these tests to find these issues?
So we design our tests after reading the science in the medical literature. So again, starting at PubMed and finding all the science where they've identified these mutations in dogs. The mutations in dogs, some are found in humans, but many of them are unique to dogs. The genes might be found in humans as well, but the mutations are unique to dogs. So the tests that we've developed in the lab for dogs wouldn't work on humans.
Interesting. Thank you again. We're at the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and close out the room today, but thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Lisa.
You are welcome. I'm happy to do it anytime, and visit us at pawprintgenetics.com or caninehealthcheck.com. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today in the room. Everybody have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. I will see you guys soon. Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow. Pet genetics. What a fascinating world, and what a wonderful tool to have in your toolkit for your pet to succeed. Michael, your host with The Pet's Journey. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon. I'm Michael, and I'm out.